Hi friends, it's Cody here, and today we're going to learn how to make a realistic 3D digital version of yourself in under an hour with absolutely no 3D modeling experience necessary. Yep. So I've split these videos up into 4 parts. Part 1 is going to go over the process of creating a digital character in Autodesk's free online character generator. It's pretty rad. Part 2 gets a little more advanced by replacing the character's skin with a photo texture of your own face in Photoshop. Frankenstein! Part 3 is going to go over how to import your 3D model into Unity and convert it into a character for video games. And for extra credit, Part 4 will go over how to convert a low polygon version of that model into a papercraft mask of your face. So, let's get started. Yo, this is Cody with the Art Lab, and this is part 3 for Digital You, creating a digital version of yourself. So in this part, we're going to be going over how to take the digital file that you made and turn it into a video game character. We're going to be using Unity, which is an amazing video game software. It's free for students, and it's really simple to use. So I'm going to start back from the generated character and downloading that just to make sure that you get the right type of file. So here's the character that I made in the character designs. So I'm going to click this box with the arrow, and it's going to bring up the generate character information. So for video games, you tend to want to have lower polygons so you can have a higher frame rate. So I'm actually going to take it from medium down to low. I'm also going to choose to use quads. And right here in the bottom left where it says generate, this is the most important box. I'm going to turn off generic FBX and turn on Unity FBX. And what that does is it changes the rig for the character from just a generic rig into a humanoid rig, and that's going to be important later when we get into Unity, and I'll show you why. Because we designed a custom texture map, I'm not going to download the normal map because that would generate a normal map from the original texture map. I'm also just going to leave off facial blend shapes and the facial bone rig, but if you'd like to do facial animation in Maya later, you can do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit generate, and it's going to take my generated character when this is finished into the generated characters. So I'm going to go ahead and load that up. Right now I already have one generated, and here it is. You can see I have the format as an FBX-Unity. It's in quads, and all you have to do is hit this purchase and download button, and if it's a paid subscription, then you can download it. If you have a free subscription, you can just download it as long as you don't have any of the paid for elements. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit purchase and download, and that's going to go ahead and download it to my hard drive. Okay, so let's go to that file. Here it is right here, Cody 2. And this is my original. You can see here is the original color file, and this is the new color sheet. So I'm going to keep the original texture file for now so you can see the difference. But the important thing right here is that you can see Cody_Unity.fbx, and that's what we're going to use. Okay, so we can go ahead and close Character Generator and pull up Unity. So this is the default view. It's not what I use, but it's going to be easiest for you to see because this is what it's going to be. It's what it's going to look like on your first open. And I'm going to go ahead and go to File, New Project, so you can see from the very beginning. And let's call this Unity Digital You. And we're not going to be using the original character controller. We're going to be using Unity's new sample assets file. So I'm not even going to check this. I tend to use skyboxes, and I tend to grab a couple of these others. I'll check skyboxes just so you can see how to do that, but other than that, that's all I'm going to need. I'm going to keep the defaults in 3D, and I'm going to hit Create Project. Okay, so here is my new, fresh new project. And as you can see, this is the default layout. We have the scene view right here where you actually build your files. You have the game view. This is what it looks like when you play. Right now I have nothing in the scene. Your hierarchy are the assets that are currently in the scene, and your inspector is an in-depth view of those assets. Down here at the bottom you have the project, and this is kind of like a library of all your assets. Your hierarchy is the assets that are currently in the scene. Think of it like the assets that are currently in the level, and your project is the entirety of all your assets. So think of it like all the assets in your game. Okay, that's a little bit of some of the windows here. I'm not going to get too much into it. If this is your first time, there are other good videos, but it's pretty simple to use and to move around. It's all the common things. If you right click, you can orbit around. If you middle mouse click, you can pan. Left click selects objects, and if you right click and WASD, you can kind of fly around, and the Q lowers and the E raises. So give yourself about 5 minutes to play around looking in the scene view. That's where we're going to be most of the time. And then when you're ready and you think you can move around, we'll get into it. Okay, so if you see in my project tab, I have a folder called assets, and within that asset is the standard assets. If you remember, when we created the new scene, we checked the skyboxes mark. So you can see that's all that's currently in the standard assets folder. Alright, we're going to get one more set of assets. It's not currently in the new project assets. We actually have to go to the Unity asset store. So if you hit F9 or Command 9 and go into the asset store, or go to Windows Asset Store, you can load that up. And I'm going to give it a chance to load here. And it'll probably look different. It always is changing, but if you go here to search Asset Store for the sample asset package, it is currently in beta testing. I think it will be the new asset package for Unity 5, but currently it's only in beta form. And if you click here, Sample Assets Beta, you can see all the nifty things that you're going to get in the package. It has a character controller, it has a really rad car controller, and a plane controller that you can put onto your own custom models, and all kinds of good stuff. So just go ahead and click Import, and this is going to import this package into your scene. So I'm going to come back when that's imported into it. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've loaded the sample assets. You can see they're different from the standard assets, which were imported when we first created it, which were just the skyboxes. But in the sample assets folder, you have a whole host of other fun toys to play with. For this tutorial, we're only going to be going over characters and cameras, these two folders. But I highly encourage you to play with any of these things. They're really fun. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to import the character into the scene. I'm just going to click on Assets so you can see everything that's currently in the project. And I'm going to find my character. Okay, so here is my character folder. Remember, we have the original texture map, and if you did video 2, you'll have your own customized texture map. Make sure that it's saved as a JPEG or a Targa. And if you chose to download the normal maps, this is what they look like, the specular map as well. But this one right here, Unity, your name underscore unity.fbx is the one we're going to be looking for. So all you have to do is drag and drop that into your assets folder, and it's going to create a unity.fbx prefab for you to use in your scene. Okay, if you chose to add a normal map to your package, it will automatically try to set that as a normal map. If you did do this, just go ahead and hit Fix Now. If not, you won't get this warning. Alright, so it's added 3 extra items to the assets folder. It's added the Unity Prefab, it's added a folder that shows what's going into that prefab. You have a texture map and a normal map, and it shows the materials, which are the textures. So before we go into any of this, I'm going to click on the unity.fbx, and in the top right in the inspector you can see where it says rig. It's set to a generic animation type. Okay, so it has currently a string of bones within the model that tell it how to be animated. I'm going to switch that animation type from generic down to humanoid to let Unity know that this is a human type character, and to set any human-based animations and controllers to be humanoid. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit apply. This is very important, otherwise your character will not animate. It'll just kind of move but not have any animation set to it. So if you get if your character just doesn't animate, then that's why that's happening. Alright, so we've applied that, and if I bring the character out into the scene and hit F to focus on the character, you can see we have, actually I have 2 characters in this scene. You can see, just like when we were in Maya, you can see both the low poly and the high poly version. That's okay. To turn that off, I'll just unzip my prefab by clicking this arrow, and I'll select the high res or the low res, and going back to the inspector, to the right of this blue box you can uncheck it, which turns that layer off. Okay, so now I currently only have the high res model selected, and I'll zip it back up, and I'm going to select it, and in the inspector again, in the transform component, I'm going to, let me make sure you can see this, I'm going to click this gear and scroll down to reset, and you'll notice that changes the position of X, Y, and Z to 0, putting him in the very, very center of my scene. Okay, so I have the character, he's just floating in space, so I'm going to create something for him to stand on by going to Game Object, Create Other, and create a plane. Okay, again, in the Transform component, I'm going to go, while selecting Plane, to the gear and reset it. So it is also set at 0, 0, 0, and right below my character. Okay, so if I go ahead and hit test, do a test play, you can see my camera is right behind the character. I have a character and it's on the plane so it can see it. If I hit WASD, it does nothing. It's probably the most boring game ever invented, but let's change that. So I'll uncheck play. Always make sure that you don't have play set. If you change anything, if you add any components and the play is set and you unplay, it will automatically discard those changes. So that's always something to be careful about. Make sure that this is not blue. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the new character controller into the scene. To do that, go into Assets, Sample Asset, and into the Characters folder. And you can see you have a first-person folder and a third-person. We're going to be using a third-person controller, so I'll double-click that, and within the Prefabs folder, I see 2 different characters. I have an AI character and a third-person character. I want to make a third-person controller, so I'm going to click and drag, and you can either drag it from the Project tab directly into the scene, or just directly into the hierarchy. I'll do that, and again notice that its transform position is not 0, 0, 0, so I'm going to reset that by clicking the gear and going to reset, and now everything is loaded at 0, 0, 0. Okay, great. So I'm going to select the third person character, and you can see it has a few components. It has a capsule for collider to make sure that the character doesn't just fall through the floor. It has a rigid body component which adds gravity and mass to your character, so when it jumps it doesn't just float off into space. And it has a third person character controller script added to it. So you have the third-person character script and third-person user control script. And this is all added to this prefab. And it also has an animator for telling it how to move and when to jump and how to move. So if you unzip this third-person character prefab, you can see it only has one thing in it, the Ethan model. So just like we hid the low poly model of our character, you can go select Ethan and in the inspector uncheck next to the blue box, and that hides the character. So it hasn't changed any of these components of the prefab, of the controller, it just hid the model that's hiding within it. So I'm going to replace Ethan with my character, Cody_Unity, by dragging it into the third-person character prefab box. And you can see it creates a blue capsule around that prefab, and if I drop it in, there it is, Cody_Unity above Ethan. So now when I click on that, I have my character within that prefab, and it inherits all of these great scripting and control units. And remember, we've changed his animation mode to humanoid, so when I click the play button, I will now be able to control the character. So now if I hit W, he walks to the left. If I hit D, he walks to the right. Sorry, W is forward, and then S is backwards. All right. So it's still not a great game. I can't change my view. I can see him running over there, but if I accidentally run too far, oops, I'm fallen, and I can't see very well. So we're going to add one more component. We're going to add a camera. So back in sample assets and double click in camera, and in the prefabs folder you have two prefabs. You have the free look camera and the multi-purpose camera. The multi-purpose camera will always stay behind the character. The free look will allow you to look around the scene with your mouse. So I'm going to add the free look camera into the scene, and notice it automatically points to the character controller, and it's set the base of the look at the character's feet. So if you notice, I currently have two cameras in the scene. That might cause some problems, so I'm just going to select the main camera and right click, delete it. So now I just have my regular camera pointing and targeting my third person character. If it automatically does not target your character, you can select third person character and click and drag it onto select your camera rig and click and drag third-person character onto the target right to the right in the inspector. But it automatically did it. So before I hit play, I'm just going to add, real quick, I'm going to add maybe a directional light so I can see a little bit better. And let's go ahead and hit play. Alright, so here's the character in the scene. It's got some lighting. If I hit W, A, S, or D, it moves and the camera follows the character. If I move the mouse around, the character can look. And there we go. We have a personalized character in Unity. So if you did video 2, let's go ahead and add that custom skin to the character. So if I click on it, Cody_Unity, and unzip it, and click on the high-res model, you can see the shader that I currently have is a bumped diffuse. That means it's using a normal map to give extra detail. And you can see here is the original texture map. So I want to use the custom texture map that we made from lesson 2. So I'm going to go back into here and click and drag Cody Color 3 into Unity. I've added in Cody Color 3, so as you can see, this is my own face. And I'll click back onto Cody Unity in the high-res model, and on this material shader, I'll just click and drag Cody Color 3 over the Cody Color. And as you can see, it's changed my texture from the original one to my own face. Wow, that's really creepy. I'm kind of freaked out. but let's go ahead and hit play and see what that looks like. Alright, so now we have my own face on the model. It's kind of hard to see. But that is a totally customized character with my own face on it in Unity. Alright, so I hope you have enjoyed these series. We have one more video taking the low-res poly model and translating it into a papercraft that you can design and cut out. So stay tuned for that. I would highly recommend going into the sample assets. If you look in the prototyping, they have all kinds of fun toys you can play with. You can add a cool, I don't know, a cool like American Ninja type component to it by adding in some of these prefabs for your character to play with, and do some jumps in and around the area. So have fun building, enjoy using this, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the games that you guys are making with this. Alright, so stay tuned to the next video. Bye. ArtLab Plus is a free digital drop-in studio for teenagers in Washington, D.C., located in the sculpture garden of the Hirshhorn Museum. Come, learn how to make games, learn how to do anything you're interested in. It's totally rad. We'll see you there. Bye.